Welcome to the Work Rate Movement YouTube channel. My name is Daniel Ajuka. I am the founder of the Work Rate Movement. Today I'm here with Tolu, the founder of Elite Smart Athletes. Welcome, Tolu. Me and Tolu met last year in London, and ever since then we've just remained good friends. We've always been sharing our basketball notes, our basketball knowledge. And yeah, I thought, why not let's do an interview together and let's pick some of your knowledge, Tolu, to help others in our community. So Tolu, please introduce yourself with an interesting fact about yourself.
Okay, wow. So yeah, as Daniel said, my name is Tolu Oyewusi. I'm 25 years old, grew up in West London, but of Nigerian descent, obviously, by my name. I studied law and French at uni, undergrad in Leicester, and I did a master's in law, business and management, and like legal practice qualifications. So yeah, kind of did the whole uni experience. An interesting fact about me is, I guess along that French line, I've been speaking French my whole life. My first word was in French. It was avion, which means plane. Apparently I saw a plane and that it said avion, according to my mom. And yeah, apparently I used to speak 4 languages when I was a kid. I used to speak French, English, Wolof, and a bit of Arabic because I grew up in Senegal for a couple of years in my childhood. So yeah, that's my interest.
Nice. So if you're coming from Elite Smart Athletes YouTube channel, you will notice that Tolu's background is a bit different to the rest of his videos, and vice versa is my background. So I'm actually in Ireland, in a town called Portlaoise. I'm playing for a basketball club called Portlaoise Panthers, and Tolu is in Dubai. Where in Dubai are you right now, Tolu?
So I'm in the UAE. Dubai is like an emirate of the UAE, like a state.
Okay.
I'm in Abu Dhabi state. Abu Dhabi is another emirate in the country, in a city called Al Ain. And yeah, I'm here currently, although, we have these YouTube channels and that, I'm out here looking for a job. So yeah, I'm out here job searching, just broadening my horizons. Yeah, so just currently on that journey at the moment.
He's putting in that work. So as a child, what were your passions?
As a child, okay, so I used to love reading. Like I enjoyed reading a lot, and I would read anything. I think I got bored of fiction quite quickly, so I used to read a lot of I remember there were these like children's encyclopedias, and there was one in particular on space. So I remember I really wanted to be an astronaut for a long time. And then the first time I remember getting on a plane, I was terrified. So I was like, well, if I can't go on a plane, how am I going to go on a rocket to space? So I gave that one up. I was really interested in, I don't know, just like animals as well, just like knowing about animals and understanding them. But I was also like, it's weird, things I was interested in, I had a fear of at the same time. So I was also kind of fearful of animals. So again, never pursued it. I thought about journalism as well. I used to write like little books. I guess I would staple them together, and I would like sit at the table pretending I was a newscaster reading God knows what, but yeah, just pretending to read off that. So there were some other passions I had, but ultimately, like I always loved sports. My dad is very into football, squash. He watches a lot of basketball as well. My uncles were all very sporty, and they were all in the UK with me growing up. And I didn't have like any older siblings. I'm the first grandchild on like both sides of my family. So I spent a lot of time with my uncles and my dad. And to me, they were like quite inspirational. They were all in very good shape. My dad to this day is still in great shape. Like, probably better shape than me. If I would probably admit that. And yeah, like I just saw how good they were at like their respective things. Like one of my uncles was particularly skilled in football. The other one was just like, built like an athlete, and he played American football. And then my dad is pretty good at football as well, but he's more athletic and he's very fast. I don't think I beat my dad in a sprint race till I was like 18. So
Oh,
yeah, like he's quick. So yeah, I just always love sports. Huh? How
how
old
old
is
is
he?
your dad? Yeah.
My dad just turned 51 like 5 days ago.
Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, ultimately sports was always a big interest of mine as a kid.
That's cool. That's cool. So obviously you went through the basketball route. So you had the privilege of playing basketball both in the UK and France. How did those opportunities arise?
Okay, so now I'll go through my UK journey a bit.
Mm.
Uh, so like I was always a tall kid. So my dad always knew that once I was going to be tall, he's going to get me into basketball. We spoke about going to university from early. Like I remember having early memories of trying to go to Duke, trying to be like Grant Hill. That was who he like. Um, and then I think we were just walking around my area one time. We gone to the corner shop, we were walking back, and there was a guy by the name of Rudy Harriet who just saw me walking, and he stopped me and my dad and he said, "Oh, your son's quite tall. Does he play basketball?" And my dad said, "Nah, but I'm looking for somewhere around here for him to play." And he said, "Oh, well, I coach a club called Felton Warriors in this area." So he took me down there. I went there. I was about 9 years old at the time. And there were no other kids my age, so all the other kids were like 12 or so. And I hated it because I was terrible. Um, so I was very sporadic with basketball from the age of like 9 to 14. And then when I got to 14, obviously I'm in secondary school now. Mind you, I spent a lot of my time trying to play football. And in my secondary school, they were pretty good at football. I think they're the current ESFA champions of the country. They won like the school's FA Cup. So yeah, very good footballers in my school. I was not one of them, so I had to figure out if I'm going to be a sportsman, what can I do? So I'm like, okay, let me try basketball. Went back to this Felton Warriors club and stuck with it. Again, pretty bad, but they happened to be National League at the time. So although I was personally bad, I was around a lot of good players, especially those older guys who I played with when I was younger. They had really developed, a lot of them borderline national team players. And just being around them just kind of pushed me to work harder. And I ended up getting selected for the London regional team or regional training squad for under 17s. I didn't make the final team, but for me, that was massive because I didn't even think I deserved to be in that scenario. I never considered myself good at a sport before. So, yeah, it was crazy being there. Ended up played an AU tournament over the summer before starting university. Didn't get any like solid looks that I was looking for out there. So I ended up going to uni in Leicester to study law with French. And with that degree, you have to do a year in France. So that's how I ended up going to France to play. But again, it was like kind of just by chance falling into different situations. I chose a university to study at. I went to the uni team trials. There weren't really many good players at this particular trial I went to. I think I did one alley-oop dunk, and then the coach just pulled me to the side. He was like, "Yeah, like you need to come to a different session." So he told me to go to this other session.
Yeah.
And to this session, now I'm seeing there's ballers at this session. I'm seeing 7-footers, like legit guys there. So I go there, I do what I can, hold my own. And I end up learning that, this uni is actually linked with Asvel, which is, I think they're currently in the EuroLeague now. At the time, they weren't in the EuroLeague, but yeah, they're a French Pro A team. And a lot of the first team players were linked with Asvel. They're almost like an academy type system.
Wow.
So I was second team for my first semester there. And then there was an injury in the first team. And this is a funny story. The coach picked me and 2 other guys that he wanted to look at to fill that injured player spot.
Nice.
And I was the worst of us 3 players. Like, I was the worst. I could tell these guys are like, they're ballers. But one of them himself ended up getting injured. And the other one was studying medicine. And he was like, I don't think I have the time to commit to the first team. So I ended up getting the spot, just by blessing, really. So even though I didn't get many minutes on that first team, I was training with them, and I was just there learning off them on the bench, and that was just crazy for me playing at like that kind of level. It was really like a semi-pro type experience for me. And yeah, then came back to the UK, finished uni, and then I was killing because I was playing at that level before. So yeah, crazy. But yeah, that's how I ended up. It's a bit of a long-winded answer, but that's how I ended up playing in France and a bit in the UK as well.
Yeah, cool. Wow, supernatural opportunity.
Right, I really have to thank God for that.
So now, so you're back in the UK, and I'm guessing you see there's some differences between British basketball and the basketball you played in France. So in your own opinion, why is British basketball struggling? Because it's a hot topic. A lot of British basketball players, they always complain about the system and how they've been done dirty by the system. So in your own opinion, is British basketball struggling? And if it is, why?
So yes, I think it is struggling. I watch a lot of the Hoops Fix podcasts that he puts up, talking to, I guess, players from previous generations and coaches and people who are around when it wasn't struggling. So the fact that there is that disparity of like there was a time where it seemed to have been very fruitful, that's one thing that shows that it's struggling now. I think the main thing is obviously money. When I was in France, the facilities that I was training in, like the main one we trained in, it had like 4 courts side by side, fiberglass backboards, wooden floors, it had a gym, and it also had like another sports complex on the side of it. And it was a government facility. Like the uni didn't own it. It was just provided by the French government or the French, I don't know, I guess sports ministry, whatever their equivalent is. So to me, that was like, okay, well, their government believes in sports and invest the money in it. And that's why, so the year I went was 2015-16. And I believe they finished 3rd in like Eurobasket that year, or 3rd in the World Championship, something like that. They were in the top 3 either in Europe or in the world. And, you know, for me, it's like quite evident as to why they can reach that level, because even though these kids are all university students who, you know, they haven't been in a pro pathway like that, but they still haven't got opportunity to compete at such a high level. So that's one reason why. I'd say the facilities, I guess that's tied into funding, but the amount of facilities I saw in France was just crazy. Like, and they're all high quality as well. So there's just always a place to play. And granted, in the UK, we have plenty of outdoor courts. And if you want it bad enough, you'll get on the court and you'll work out, you know. But, you know, it's a country that like is dying for indoor facilities because it's cold. It's unsafe to play on those kind of things at times. So like, we just have more indoor places to play. I just think that alone could probably get better players. Better players means a better product, which means more commercial opportunities, and I feel like it's a trickling effect. That's my personal opinion on it. Yeah, that's probably my main view on that.
That's good stuff. So now going back to how you were coached from the time you started playing basketball for Felton Warriors, then you played in France, and then obviously coming back to the UK. Are there any differences or kind of things where the coaching needs to improve, especially with the way kids are being coached today in the UK?
In the UK, so I think nowadays kids are probably coached pretty well, well-rounded. I think when I was growing up, because I was a tall kid, I was just put in the post. And for me, that was quite detrimental. Like, I didn't have the spatial awareness to understand where I was. And so I wasn't contributing to my team how I should have been as a traditional post player. I mean, granted, back in those times, that is how, I guess, the game at the top level was played a lot. But when I went to France, and mind you, again, it's just university level. It's not like the craziest level. The first thing was that the girls trained with the boys, so
Wow.
there was no separation. Like we worked out, we bumped with them. Like if we're gonna die, and they were going hard too. So that's one massive difference that I saw, and it just explained why the French women are so good at basketball. In fact, one girl who was there, she had done her year abroad at my university when I was in first year, and she killed. Like she was the star of that team.
Oh wow.
And so when I went there and saw her, it just made sense. Like no wonder you're so good. Like you're training with all of these like very good players, very physical guys. You're just playing with girls. It's like no problem, especially guys in the UK. So that's one thing. Another thing was that it was almost like positionless. So everybody does the same stuff. Everyone works on all skills. And I mean, I knew that as in theory because of the rise of like European players in the NBA and stuff. But to experience it and to understand why it happened. So like we go into a training session and I mean, mind you, I told you there were 4 courts side by side and every court was filled. So there's like at least 70, 80 people in this gym. And everyone has a ball. So when we warm up, everyone's able to get a ball and we're just doing dribbling drills to warm up for like half an hour, going around the court, finishing, hitting each other with moves. And even if you're big and you're not that great at the moves, like you're getting reps straight away. And to me, that was just like a major difference because I'd never been given the freedom to do that growing up. Like, I think until I played on the London, when I was training with the London guys, that was the first time I got the chance to, but I'd never ripped it out like that. So obviously I wasn't confident enough to do it against that caliber of player. But yeah, I think those are 2 major differences that at that time I didn't really see in the UK. I think nowadays, with the way the game's evolved, I think coaches are more wise to it and definitely giving players more all-round skills. I think I'm lucky I went to France at the time I did because even though maybe I wouldn't say my dribbling and stuff developed loads, but my shooting, I improved my shooting a lot. So I then became, okay, I can kind of play 3 and D. I can rebound, I can defend different positions, and I can shoot the open shot when it's there. So that's kind of given me an ability to adapt to the way the game's played now without having to play with my back to the basket as much. But yeah, like I think that was, when it came to coaching, those were the 2 differences. Girls play with guys and everybody practices everything.
I think for me, having played abroad and seeing how kids are being coached, I feel like previously, I'm not sure about now because I haven't been to any of the schools or part of the school sessions for basketball, but I feel like in the UK, we lack high-level coaching. Not a lot of kids from the start are being taught by high-level coaches. They're being taught by volunteers or PE teachers from the very start. But like, for example, when I was in Sweden, the head coach was recruiting school kids that didn't really know how to play basketball. It was like, yeah, I'll teach you how to play basketball. Can you imagine that? In the UK, you have, I don't know, the head coach of the BBL walking up to random kids in schools or in advertising, come and train with the Lions, and he's actually taking the session. I go to somebody, so Sweden is a great example. I was in Sweden and I was talking to some of the guys who are my age. Or like, yeah, the head coach, he coached me from the time I, thought about playing basketball. And it was like, this is crazy. So yeah, I think for me, it's more just the number of high-level coaches. There needs to be more, and we lack that.
Yeah.
So,
do you mind if I just jump in there as well? I think it's weird. Personally, I think I got lucky. So Alan Keane, who is, I think he's GB under 20 head coach now, but he's been under 16s and under 18s. And he coaches at Reading Rockets Academy, and I think Reading Rockets Division 1 men's team. I happened to get coached by him when I was a kid. Like I was like he was at Feltham at the time when I first started playing there. So I got lucky being coached by a coach of that caliber. But yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. There's almost like a disconnect between the best coaches and then players that want to learn the game. But I think that is, in some places, it does change a bit. So like I've been at Richmond Max for the past year, and their head coach is Isaac Omarin, and he's an amazing coach, and he coaches at all levels. He doesn't care. He'll coach 4-year-old kids, 3-year-old kids, through to the men's team who are in Dig 2. So yeah, some places it's changing, but there is still that disconnect at times.
So now moving on to Elite Smart Athletes brand. What's the story behind that?
Okay, so it kind of links back to my issues with British basketball. So I told you I played an AU tournament in America when I was 18. And we did one training session out there, which was in a court that, it was actually a barn house that had been converted into a basketball court. And I was just thinking like, wow, like in America, these lot will make anything a court. Like, they love this game. It's crazy. But then it got me thinking like, wait, so I'm sure there's buildings that are unused in the UK that we could just make a court in here. So why don't we do that? So I started just kind of thinking about this idea. So this is back in 2013. And then come to 2015, I was on a train back from Leicester to London, and I start seeing all these warehouses. And I'm like, oh, that idea just came back to my head. Like, wow, like something could be done here. But again, I started to research into it, and I'm like, it's a bit expensive to try and buy these things and do something with it. But I saw Leicester, I happened to be in Leicester at the time where Leicester Riders created their facility. And I went to a conference up there, and I spoke to the owner of Newcastle Eagles about his facility plans. And now they've opened their facility at the beginning of this year, I think it was. So I'm starting to see people do it. And for me, it was a thing where, okay, I don't have the money to do that right now. Like, I'm still a student. What can I do to try and at least help where I can until I can solve that problem, which I think is a major issue. And I just started to assess myself, like, what am I actually good at? Like, and I'm good at learning, and I'm good at teaching. I've worked with young people a lot, whether it was coaching or mentoring or tutoring. So I'm either sharing my experience or my knowledge or my skills. And I'm like, how can I help out with that in something that I'm actually truly passionate about? And I kind of tied that in with, I suffer from patellar tendinopathy. So that's essentially jumper's knee. But I've had it for almost 10 years now, and I've never been able to really solve it. And I just don't want people to make that same mistake at a young age. The reason I got it is purely because I was trying to dunk. Like, I was 16 years old and I was trying to dunk, and that was it. And I just was not jumping properly. I did not think about trying to lift weights before. I just started jumping, trying to grab the rim. And had I known to just build up a bit of strength first, I probably would have avoided having this thing for so long. But I'm just trying to find the answers, because I know you can get rid of it. So I'm just kind of on my journey of doing so. So with Elite Smart, it was more about documenting that journey. That was how it started off, and just testing out different workout programs. And I do that in my lab rat series, is what I called it, because essentially I'm just a little lab rat, just testing stuff out on myself. And then it kind of grew because I started to make connections with people in the British basketball community. So I started just showcasing different events I was going to, or different places I would be. So, because obviously as a member of the British basketball community, I feel like it's our duty to do it justice as much as we can and help it where we can. So I was just showcasing where people are doing good things. And then now it's kind of turned into more of a business, actually. And I'm starting to think of it more from a business perspective, so that I can then fulfill that original dream of those facilities. So yeah, at least it started off as like one idea that spread back into a couple that's all gonna come back into the main one.
Nice. So, guys, we're gonna break for part 2, and yeah, just stay tuned for the next part.